here. So Mike, come on up.
Well, good morning, North Carolina. My home state for all of my life, and the first time I get to do a keynote here, so I had to speak all over the country to come back here. So, but I'm so excited today, so excited to be here with you. It's the largest crowd I've spoke to in a long time, and a special thanks to Paul and Mary for having me here. I get shaky at the start, not because I'm scared or I'm nervous, just because I'm so excited to get started. And that'll shake off in a few minutes. So if you see me shaking, you'll know that's what it is. Anybody that knows me knows I don't mind to talk. So what we're going to talk about today, 9-to-5 testers. What is a 9-to-5 tester? And what is, how do we test everywhere? And we're going to hear a little bit about the testing community and what folks are seeing in the community today. And then I want to give you some advice on how to think beyond 9 to 5 and being more than that. Now, for those of you that know me, you know that I want to be a motivational speaker, and not the Chris Farley kind, but a real motivational speaker. And I've got a book that I'm working on. It's a leadership book, and I've got some things that I'm doing there. And I thought when they asked me to do this keynote, I said, if I was going to combine motivational speaking with testing, what kind of things would I do? What kind of things would I talk about? And I thought, let's look at some of the leadership books and the motivational books. Would we take the 360-degree leader and make it 360-degree tester? Would we take 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and make it highly effective testers? Or how about Good to Great? That's a good one to change into Good to Break, right? Just a couple more. Start with Why, very famous book out lately. We would say start with Why Not. And the 1-minute manager would be the 1-minute tester, which I'm sure every one of your development teams would want you to buy and read and study. And one of my favorite books is Never Wrestle with a Pig, which doesn't need any changes, right? So I see a show of hands. How many people in the room love your job? Okay, I'm recording that now. Hold them high. Who doesn't? No, I'm kidding. Now, if you're with your manager or you're with your peers and you don't want them to know that, just kind of wink at me. I'll catch it. Don't worry. But the one thing I found is testers really love their jobs. There's other jobs in this world where people go to work and they're not happy. But if you're a tester, you really want to be a tester most of the time. I mean, some days you probably wish you were something else, but most of the days you want to be a tester. Now let me see a raise of hands if you want to get better at what you're doing. Who doesn't want to get better, right? Who's that person that says, I'm happy, I'm good right where I'm at, I'm going to just stay where I am? Well, I'm glad you raised your hands, and I'm glad you want to do that because we're going to talk about some things to do to get better and to be better at your job. So how did I get this idea of testing 9 to 5? It's funny, we had the Olympics just last week because when I got this idea and I wrote this keynote, the Olympics for the Summer Olympics were going on, and I watched Michael Phelps do things that only a God could do. And if you don't know who Michael Phelps is, I don't know where you've been for the last couple of years. And the thing I saw Michael Phelps do was he broke all these records, and he won more gold medals than anybody in the Olympics. And I started thinking about that because I see Michael Phelps, and I see him for just a couple of weeks. And the Olympics comes and goes, and they're gone before you even know it. And what we don't see is all the years that he spent in a swimming pool, all the years he spent working out, eating right, taking the right vitamins, sometimes doing a few things that were questionable. But he worked hard, and you don't see that in the Olympics. You see 3 weeks worth of Michael Phelps doing the best he's ever done. What you want to do in your organization is, as a software tester and whatever your role is, you want people to say, they're amazing. And they don't have to think about all the practicing, the studying, the extra work, the conferences that you're going to, the keynote speakers that you listen to, the people that you follow on social media. They don't have to think about all those things. They just need to know you're amazing. And it's your opportunity to do that. I went too fast. I think I skipped a Phelps slide. Okay, so I'll go this way. My dad worked in a factory. I love my dad, and this is me. I don't have those pants anymore, if you want to ask. My mom made them and made me wear them, and I still to this day don't know why I couldn't pull my hat down, but my dad taught me that. So, but the one thing is for sure, he supported my family, and I love him for what he did, and I love him for all the support he gave. He worked in this factory for almost 3 decades, if not more. And the one thing that I found when I started thinking about 9 to 5, he didn't actually work 9 to 5. He worked one shift, but he worked that one shift. And he would go to work, he'd punch his clock, he'd do his job, he'd punch his clock, and he'd go home. Now, he got plenty of awards in the role that he played in this company, but he didn't go home and study factory work. He didn't go home and study how can I run this machine better or faster. They might have sent him to a training on how to use that machine, but he didn't study to get better at that because that's what he did every day as a factory worker. And no disrespect there. If you have family that do, that's not what I'm trying to say. The point I'm trying to make is he didn't have to study like we're going to have to study to be the best testers in the world. Because if you want to be a gold medal tester and a world-class tester, you're going to have to do more than just go to the office and test every day and go home afterwards. And so we're going to talk today about 9 to 5 tester versus professional tester. And what are some of those differences and how do you stand out? Now, I saw a quote that says, "You never realize how boring your life is until someone asks you what you like to do for fun." You ever try to tell some of your family members how you test and what testing means that don't know anything about IT? Isn't that fun? I've had family members that thought that when I worked at Lowe's Home Improvement that I was testing the actual hardware, the equipment, for years. So it's hard to explain to somebody what you do and how you do it. So don't confuse 9 to 5 with being a workaholic. I'm not asking you to work 70 hours a week. I'm not saying that to be the best you have to volunteer. In fact, I'm telling you, don't do that. Don't overdo your work and try to run 7 projects or test for 7 projects or support multiple things. Focus on what you do after you leave the office and what things you're doing on your nights and weekends, and think of it that way. Now, how many people started your career as a tester? Wow, there's a lot of hands. Most people I meet will tell me they started in this role or that role. I've had people tell me they started out as developers, that's typical, or they started out in one of the IT groups. I had somebody tell me they started out in psychology. They had a psychology degree and they were doing psychology work, which I think probably helps us as testers, right? But it doesn't matter where you start and how you start. I think you have to look at, are you born with it? And let's think about it. Anybody have kids? When you look at your children, they're born testers. If we all have a little bit of that inside us that we're born with, because you think about it. I've had 2 children that I've raised mostly, and what I find from them is they will put anything in their mouth. They're exploring the world. They're touching things they shouldn't. They're burning themselves. They're falling, and I know you're thinking, what kind of father are you? They're burning themselves. But it's crazy what kids will do. The thing that I ask you is, do you feel that you were born with it? Do you feel that you were born a natural tester? And if you do, we can talk about some really good things that you can do to grow professionally. Now, the drive-thru is not always faster. My book that I'm working on, I've been working on forever, more years than I can tell you now, is called The Drive-Thru is Not Always Faster. Now, how many of you have been sitting in a drive-thru, waiting in line, and you see somebody drive up, they park their car, they go in, they get their food, they leave, and you're still sitting there, and you've not made it to the window yet? That happened to anybody? So the thing I would say to you is, You can apply that to anything in your everyday life, anywhere that you have a situation where something may not be. I'll back up for a second. When I talk to people in the drive-through windows, of course, they get offended because I'm talking about their job. My job is faster. The drive-through is faster. And I'll show them my business card and show them that I've got a book coming. The drive-through is not always faster. And I had one of the people in the window say to me, well, it's more convenient to come through the window at least. It may not be faster, but it's more convenient. And you know what? They made a great point. And I thank them for that because they helped me add to this presentation. And that is, yes, it is. Sometimes things are convenient for us. But what's convenient for us in our organization may not be the fastest, most efficient, most financially perfect solution. So when you're looking as testers, we have so many opportunities to change the way we're doing things. You go down this path and you've got an obstacle that's holding you back, you can rethink it. And if you can go to your organization and say, you know what, I think we can test differently here. I don't want to do it the way that we've always been doing it. We know that that's going to be a holdup. Let's try something else. Let's back up and go a different route. Lots of times there are alternatives that will give you the same solution without having to wait for the window. Believe it or not, there are worse things than we've always done it this way. Did you know that? Worse than you've heard people say that. I've been in some really old organizations that have been in business for 50, 60, one of them was 120 years. And what I find is they say, well, we like your ideas, we like your new testing concepts, but we've been doing it this way for a long time. And we're just going to keep doing it this way. But worse than that, because you hear that all the time, is the statement, everybody's doing it this way, right? How many hear that? And how many of you have to deal with the fact that okay, we're going to do it this way because our competition's doing this, and let's do it this way today. Now, I say there's a good way to learn to deal with something is to listen to others that have already dealt with it. Now, that sounds contradictory to what I just said, is that if everybody's doing it, don't do it. And it's really not. And the reason it's not is because you need to look at the way people resolve their issues. If somebody says, I had this problem, and this is how I dealt with it, then you might be able to do the same thing to solve your problems. Or you might hear them tell you, this is what happened to our testing organization, and you say, well, now I know what not to do because we've seen what you've done. And so you can learn from people. And one of the things I want to share with you is how that I took a survey. 267 people took the survey, got a lot of inputs from various people in the testing community, and asked some questions that relate to this keynote. Good, right? Really? And I want to share it with you. One of the things I wanted to see is how many hours per week do you spend in meetings? Now, when you look at this graph, over 49% are spending more than 5 hours in meetings every week. Do you find yourself in that situation? You're in meetings, and you're thinking to yourself, how can I test because I'm in a meeting? And then I'm going to go do another meeting, and I'll test for 5 minutes, and I'll go test again. You get in that situation? 21% of the folks that I surveyed said that they spend more than 10 hours in meetings. So then I asked the question to drill down, okay, it's bad that you're in meetings that much, but if you're in meetings, what are those meetings for? And how much time are you spending in requirements and project meetings? And when you look, 72% of people are saying that they're spending more than 5 hours in meetings. I want to know who's spending more than 20 hours. I want to talk to these 6 people that are spending more than 20 hours. Anybody do that? You're spending more than 20 hours a week in requirements? Okay. It would be really tough, and it would really take away from your testing experience if you had to do that. Now, hours per week in company functions not related to testing. So when I look at how much time do you spend doing that, still you got 7 people now that are saying they're spending more than 20 hours in things that are not related to testing. And my question is, are you a tester? What are you doing? Okay. And another thing I asked was, And these were all, you didn't have to choose just one. You could pick any of these or all of these. And I asked folks, what do you do when you're not testing? What do you do outside of work, the activities that you're doing when you're not testing? Reading blogs, 87%. Discussions on social media was 55%. My computer on the floor, 5%. Conferences, 41%. And training classes was 41%. Meetups, 43%. Then reading articles and books was 74%. Crowd testing, which is exciting, is 19%. And then other. So I got curious about other. People like to select other if you give them that option. If you ever do a survey, don't give other as an option. Because people will do it, or all of the above. They'll say, okay, I'll just take it all. Don't give them an option. Make them pick something. But when I looked into others, I got some pretty good things, and it was kind of some one-offs, some outliers. And we got learning development skills, watching videos, listening to podcasts, mentoring, face-to-face time with other testers, practicing and testing on self-made exercise. One guy told me that he just found new things to test and come up with. So, got any friends like that? No? Well, mobile games. I've got a few mobile games that I've tested and broken, accidentally or not accidentally. But now, I'm bringing up these others because they kind of stood out. Somebody said they used photography as testing, as practicing their testing. And then I started thinking about that. I took a photography course, and it surely isn't easy. It's very, to understand lighting and speed and all of that, I think that it's probably a good thing to test. But then someone said job searching. So that's how I make myself better. I want to see what other people want, and then I'll try to do that. Maybe that is a good thing. Someone said reading non-testing books and trying to find a testing relation. Now, I can relate to that. If I watch movies where the time of the movie is set, like the Goldbergs, it's set in the 80s, I always look to see if somebody's accidentally got a 2000 version car in the back. I always try to catch a problem with the movie or something like that, or some mistake they make in filming if it's not in the right genre. But now, is Mark Tomlinson here? No? I think he gave this one, Testing the Quality of Whiskeys. I'm almost positive he was the one that answered that question, if you know Mark. So I'm not sure the more you test that, the probably less good you'll be at being a 9-to-5 tester. The one thing I thought was really good, and it's evidenced by what we're seeing here today, is the conference numbers are growing. Good for folks that are working with conferences because people are starting to come out. And what that tells me is it's not that everybody just wants a day off. Hopefully that's not why you came. But it's that people really genuinely want to improve, and they want to get better at what they're doing. And you see conferences across the board that I've spoken at and attended, getting full houses and selling out. And as Mary mentioned, this is the first time this is a sellout, right? So continue to do that. Encourage people that you know in the community. You're probably the one at work that comes here, maybe, and encourage the others. But if they only let one go, then to the conference, and of course don't give your spot up, but go back and take it back to them. One of the things I always challenge my teams to do is go back and return with what did you learn, and have a case study, not a case study, but just a experience report of I learned this, So those of you in my workshop yesterday, I hope you got some good material to take back. I learned as much from you as you learned from me, as I've always said. Blogs and articles are king. That's the one thing we saw. Both blogs and articles got into 70s and 80%. So if you're writing a blog today and you're somebody who writes blogs on testing or articles on testing, keep it up because people are listening. Whether you know it or not, they're reading your stuff and they're studying. And you got some opportunities to share in the community and continue to let your voice be heard. But, yeah, sorry. I thought I had a different slide there. So how do you learn testing at work? I asked them, the 267 people, I asked them, how do you learn testing at work? And the 10 things that kind of stood out to me were they learn multiple domains. Do you work in an organization where you can test in different areas? I know I worked in a retail organization where I could work in store systems or logistics or distribution or finance. If you're stuck in that one place, and I don't say stuck, it sounds negative, But if you're working in that one area, look for an opportunity to move to another area. Makes you more versatile to be able to work in different parts of the organization. Looking for the latest technology and trends. Did you know that 35 years ago nobody was testing mobile and .com and all these sites? It really wasn't here yet. Learning development practices. A lot of people say they're scared to do that sometimes, but if you think about this, if you do learn development as a tester, a lot of times if you know what's going on in the code, then you can say, here's the bug, here's the defect, and here's what I think might be the problem. And make sure you say, here's what I think might be the problem. Because you'll get back, that's not your job. But if you want to be a helper, I'm here to help. Customer views. Any folks context-driven testers here? Raise your hands. I will say that I am, and my company is the first company I'm in that has allowed me to start using it officially as a true practice. But I like to kind of see how people use other approaches as well. But in context-driven, it's really critical to know what the customer wants and what the customer needs, because you have to look at it from their context. But it appeals in every other type of testing approaches as well, in schools of testing. So if you're writing your scripts and you're putting things together that way, then you're looking at how do I need to write this so that the customer is pleased and happy with what we're doing. Again, exploratory testing kind of goes along lines with context-driven, but just thinking of new scenarios. Don't let just what you have. A lot of people get complacent and say, okay, the tests are already there, we can just run them again, regression is good. Build upon those things. And as I had someone tell me in an interview once, think beyond the test cases. Test beyond the test cases. Even if you're using test cases, test even beyond that. Do some exploratory testing. Pair testing. None of us is as good as all of us, right? In-house brown bag lunch. A lot of times people will say, I don't have time to study after work, but maybe during lunch I could sit down and meet with some others on the team and have everybody bring their lunch to a meeting in your office and share that. I've done that in organizations, and it comes in very handy because it doesn't require you to do it after work, and if you have a really busy life after work or weekends, maybe the lunchtime is a good thing to do. Studying security testing. A lot of groups do not do security, and somebody else does security for the organization, but you do all the other testing. But with all the changes that are coming, the new technology that we're seeing every day, and the changes in security breaches and the new things that are happening, I think it helps you to understand that, even if you're not required to do that for your organization. Training junior level testers and entry-level testers. Like I said before, when I taught people, I learned something every time. And I always go into this, I'm the man, I'm going to teach you something, and I end up learning something. I learned yesterday in the workshop. I learned in other workshops I've done and sessions that I've done. I learned so much from people just by teaching them. The teacher becomes the student, as I've said many times. And then someone said, make testing fun. And I had to look at it twice to make sure they didn't say make fun of testing. And I asked him if he could change one thing, and we had several things, typical things that you would think of. So in the survey, I asked folks, what is the one thing you would change in your organization? And they said things like, I want to be involved earlier in the process. I want to shift left. I want to be earlier involved in everything that we're doing in the software development life cycle. I want to be able to work with the development team. I want our senior management to respect testing. Okay. I want them to love what we're doing. I want to feel appreciated, things like that. But the one big thing that stood out, and I'm sure you agree, is minimize meetings. Now, a couple people said, I just want to eliminate meetings, and I think that'd be hard to do. You still have to meet for something, but just don't have meetings to meet. I've had meetings before, literally, and it's not a joke. I've had a meeting to talk about when we're going to plan a meeting. When can we have that next meeting? We need to have 4 meetings. Let's meet to talk about when we're going to do that. Did you know that no test team ever woke up one day and said, we're going to fail? Have you done that before? I mean, other than saying, like, oh, my God, we're going to fail. Not like that. I'm saying, like, have you ever just got up and said, you know what, today I'm going to fail? Nobody does. Did you know that last month they closed the last Blockbuster video? Do you think Blockbuster thought that they were going to close down anytime soon? My kids don't even know what a VHS is. They've never seen one. And it's hard for them to understand what a DVD is because everything's electronic now. So times are changing, and we have to be able to adapt to it and be prepared for it so that when that does happen, we're ready as testers, because technology is going to keep going whether we like it or not. And when it keeps moving, we have to stay up to date with it. Now, Michael Bolton, never short of words. And I love his quotes, and I took this off of Twitter and told him I was going to steal it. But he says, as testers, one of our most important jobs is to reveal problems that threaten the value of the product and the on-time successful completion of the project at every level of granularity. And I've heard Michael say this many times, and I violently agree with him. As testers, we're not just there to find defects. We're there to investigate. We're investigative reporters. And we're there to tell what we're seeing. Lots of times we get wrapped around how many defects can we show and what defects have we found, and if we didn't find defects, we really didn't do our job. It's not true. As a tester, ask questions. One of the things we taught the workshop yesterday was, if you don't ask me questions, I'm not going to tell you the answers. And if you continue to ask questions, I might tell you I can't answer that, but at least you've asked the question. You'll be surprised what you can get and what you can learn about a project when you start asking questions. And the more questions you ask, a lot of times you can actually get the people the stakeholders. I've asked the question, the first time I started my current job, I went to one of our stakeholders and I said, why is this requirement there? And they said, I have no idea. So we took it out. We didn't have to develop it or test it because nobody remembered why it was there. Sometimes asking the question might save you a little time. We have a new driver on the road. This is my 15-year-old son, Winston. And for those of you, since we live in North Carolina, my daughter's name is Salem Grace, so it's Winston and Salem, so just so you know that. And that is no joke. I have friends who haven't seen me for 10 years will say, how's Winston and Salem doing? And I love it that you get that joke. It doesn't work in Australia. So Winston just got his permit, which scares me to death. This is him in my car that I was afraid if he wrecked it last week, I wouldn't be here today, at least by car, maybe by Uber. But he's happy. He's got his learner's permit. He wants to drive all the time. Everywhere we go, Dad, can I drive? Can I drive? He's eager. He's got his license. Does that make him a great driver? Absolutely not. And as I sit in the car and I watch him look left and look right and then take off, and there's a car coming from the left now, and I'm like, oh, God, help us all. I realized one important thing. He was put here to help me add to this presentation. And two, just like with testing, I'm not here to debate the certification and versus non-certification, because I've been certified, and people tell me I'm certifiable. But thank you. I'm here all week. But the thing is, it doesn't make you a better tester. It may make you a better process person, and I support it. And if you're doing it for whatever reason, do it. But I'm not here to say that. I'm here to tell you that whether you get training, you can come to a conference, and I can tell you 50 ways to do something. If you don't go back and apply it, and you don't do it yourself, then you're not going to be able to learn from it. I tell my son every time he drives me, that's my opportunity for me to tell him, there are people that drive with the lights off after 6 o'clock at night, and you need to watch for them and not watching for that. There are people that, even though, because he said that they have the right-of-way, Dad, and I said, they're supposed to have the right-of-way, or you're supposed to have the right-of-way, but that doesn't mean they're not going to pull out in front of you. So as a tester, you have to assume that today it's not going to always work the same way that I expected it to today. Things might go wrong, and they probably do, and they usually do. Okay, so I want you to look under your seat. There's a number under your seat. We're going to find out who's the winner today. Okay, stop. Oh, no. The fact is, I'm lying to you. I didn't do that. And the problem is you believed it. So what made you think that I had the authority that I was good? Well, first of all, Mary knows I didn't get here in time to put them under the seats. But secondly, just because I'm up on the stage and I'm a guy in a suit and I'm doing a keynote and I've talked for 25 years in testing, or not 25 years, but many years, and I've been in IT for 25 years, Why did you believe that without questioning it? It's the thing I asked my workshop. In workshop people, you should have asked their question. But no, I saw people sitting up. I saw you. But think about this. You don't have to just do it because you're told to do it. You have to question why. The first thing I ask any project that tells me here's what we're going to do, I say why. Why are we doing this? What's this project going to do for us? They said, read the requirements document. I said, I don't want to read the requirements document. I want you to tell me why we're doing it. What's the purpose of what we're doing? They can't articulate that to you, and you may have problems. But the thing is, and this is the point I'm trying to make in this situation is, you as the testing organization, if you can get to the point as a tester in your organization where people believe you and they do what you say needs to be done without question, just like you did, then you know you've arrived. Because you know how it is today. You know how it is where you have to stand and say, we really need another week of testing, or we need another day of testing, and this is not well. And they say, do you think it'd be okay if we shipped it tomorrow? Would it be okay if we went ahead? You know, I hear what you're saying, but you're a tester. We're going to drive this on out and get it into production. So if you're in that situation, work every day to get yourself to the point where you have so much trust within the organization that they don't question when you say, look under your seat. They don't question when you say, you know what, I think this is a high-risk problem. The situation you're going to run into is where you're saying, this is high risk. I can't tell you for sure if it's going to break, but I think it will. And when you say that, when you get your organization to the point where they say, if Mike thinks that's a high risk, we're not going to go with it. I just do not want this to cause a problem in production. Work to get yourself there. And thank you for looking under your seat, by the way. So, now, we all have 24-hour days. Zig Ziglar said that a long time ago. Nobody can complain. We all have 24-hour days. Sometimes I think I have more, but I do not. You do not. We all have the exact same 24. And now, 8 of them, we sleep. The last couple of days, I've not slept 8 hours. But you take away those 8 hours, you spend 9 hours at work, if you're lucky, right, per day. Your time left is 7 hours. Now, that doesn't count your drive to work, your drive to home, picking up the kids from swimming, picking up the kids from piano, and everything else that somebody signed my kids up for. Eating food, and doing some of the things that I do. My distractions are TV. And TV has ruined me. Does TV ruin anybody else? Binge watching was invented for me, by the way. And the people that release a whole season at once should be locked up. Because as bad as I hate it, I wish you'd just release one at a time. When you release a whole season, well, Walking Dead's kind of different. They make me wait forever to see the ending 6 months later. But this one, Orange is the New Black, I'll watch it like I will almost ruin a conference presentation over it. Silicon Valley almost cost me the conference last year that I was doing. And Breaking Bad really almost 6 months ago, I binge watched every bit of Breaking Bad, and then, of course, Game of Thrones. I did 7 seasons at once. Everybody talked about it. Everybody talked about it, and I said, I don't want that stuff. And then, sure enough, I did want that stuff. I really did. And then I would get the end of Game of Thrones. Okay, winter is here, and my presentation is not. Thank you for laughing. So some suggestions I have for you is have an opinion. Now, it's very critical that when you have an opinion, I'm going to tell you a secret. People are not going to agree with your opinion sometimes. And how do you deal with that? Don't take it personal. There's a lot of books on how to handle that, and I'm not the best. I can tell you how to do. I'm not sure I always follow my own rules there. It gets personal sometimes because I'm really passionate about what I do in testing. And as leadership and management and driving teams, I get passionate about, I really want to do this. And if you don't agree with me, then I'll still love you. But don't take it personal. But still have an opinion. Don't sit back and just let everybody else drive the show. And as I told the team, the folks yesterday in the workshop, just because you don't have a manager title, director title, VP title, some other title, doesn't mean that you're not a leader. You can lead from all within the organization. I used to lead upward when I was not a manager, and I was a lead, and even when I was a developer or a tester. You can do that. Don't sell yourself short. Oh, I'm not a manager. I can't make those decisions. Yes, you can. Make suggestions. Show your opinion. Socialize. Any introverts? Raise your hand. No, I'm just kidding. You actually did. Thank you for that. Sorry to do that, to make you do that. But it's different. You know, the good part about social media is you don't have to see anybody, and you don't have to be in a crowd of people. And I know that's not really the definition of introverts, but you can kind of sit behind the computer and talk to people. Get out there and look at what people are doing. There is a ton of things out there on social media related to testing, and you can be part of that. I've got a Twitter list, and if you go to my Twitter, if you're on Twitter, please follow me. I'm very narcissistic, okay? I'll admit it. I'm not scared. But I've got a list out there called Testing. There's about 1,200 members in it. I know you can't just get this link, and I'll put this out on SlideShare or something where you can get the link, or if you email me, then I'll send it to you. Study the writings of other testing leaders. Same thing there. I've got a thing called Testopedia on my WordPress site. And if you go to MikeLyles.wordpress.com/Testopedia, there's an old list where I had tons and tons of links to a lot of people's web pages, blog sites that you can use. You'll see that even I put in there, this is going to be updated soon. I promise I will do that someday. And I'm going to get new sites added to it, but you'll still see some really good ones there, different things you can look for. Test all the time. How many of you have family members that are tired of you testing every single thing? I got family members that won't go test drive a car with me anymore because I will find a way to break that new car. And I usually do it with the Bluetooth stuff, you know, that's just a hint. By the way, McDonald's, if you go in and you order a burger and you take the cheese off and you take the bread off and you take all the other toppings off and then you take the burger itself off, their system will go down. Trust me, try it. If you work at McDonald's, I'm sorry, we have tried this, and people are doing it everywhere right now. Because you know at McDonald's what they said? Nobody would ever do that. We're testers. Test the TV controller. I'm going to be quick, getting close. Sorry. What would you test first in a TV controller? Now, if I was in a setting, you can speak up if you want to. So we can pretend like we're in a giant workshop. No. But what would you test first? Power button? Batteries, yes. Drop it. Put it in water, right? What's that? Block the transmitter. Yes. You guys are coming up with good ones. Is there service on the TV? What good's a controller if we don't have that, right? Is there power? Are there batteries? See, she was in my workshop, and I said, just keep saying answers until somebody says, please shut up. Good job. I did that in an interview once, and what would you do to test this? And I just kept going. They said, okay, we get it. You know what you're doing. Is the TV plugged into power? Is the big one, and a lot of people don't get this, is that for this specific TV, for anybody who has DirecTV, if you swap those TV controllers, they will not work in the other room, and it drives me crazy because my kids swap them all the time. And I'm sitting there going, something's wrong. I need batteries, and I don't need batteries. Anybody use Facebook Messenger to call people? No? Wow. If you have and if you've ever done it, when it finishes, it asks you this every single time. And you know what I give them is a 1 every single time. And I tested that because I want to know that if you do a 1, it doesn't say, why did you get a 1 like Skype does. Skype will ask you, and then it really wants to know. Skype wants to talk to you for a while if you've used Skype for calls. But this got me thinking, and this just happened, and these things happen to me all the time. My mom used to say she got stories right before every presentation she used to do in different organizations, and I do too. This came to me last week. And the thing is, what is quality? Well, you know what they're saying. They're asking you, is the quality of the call good? Could you hear? Could they hear? Did it drop unexpected? Things like that. I'm thinking, if I'm on a call with a friend and we didn't get along very well and the call ended really bad because they got mad at me and they called me a bad name, I would say that's a 1. I'd probably rate that a 0, you know? And then I started thinking, well, would the friend think that it was a 1, you know? Because it wasn't, you know. But then in your organization, and what I wanted to share with you today is in your organization, quality means something different to everybody. I told my workshop yesterday Ask somebody who's not in testing what quality means to them, and you'll probably get a whole different answer than what you think quality means to you. And until your organization all agrees on what quality is, and you're not there to make them agree, but when you think quality for the organization, you're helping out this group or that group, you need to know what quality means to them so you can deliver that quality to them and support it. And I'm not saying we deliver quality, we know we don't, but we sometimes own some of that or the governance of it. So look around your teams, ask somebody at work that's not in the testing group tomorrow when you go back. What does quality mean to you? Listen to their answer. You're going to be excited to hear it. There's some things you do not test everything, okay? I was in Canada, and that sign was as big as any other sign in the elevator, and I tried it. It works. It's true. Pass. Share your story. If you're not blogging, don't be afraid. Even if you're an introvert, don't be afraid. And if you say, I don't have a lot to say, and I don't know what to say, and I get scared because I don't talk like my friends talk. My friends write long articles. They talk like Mike does. He talks all the time, and he won't shut up, and he writes all the time. Just go out and put a paragraph. Hey, I tested this today, everybody. You know what? Somebody cares about that. You'll be surprised how many people will read that blog and say, great job. You wrote one paragraph. Who cares? But just get started. You'll find it gets very, it's very addictive. And once you start writing, somebody will write to you, hey, I feel your pain. You know, sometimes I used to write I've had people that just write one paragraph. It was a tough day today. We had this break. You know, write about something. It doesn't even have to be about testing. Just start blogging so you can get used to doing it. Definitely share your story. If you're afraid to stand in front of people and speak, do webinars. You can't see them. The only drawback is I love seeing faces, and I love seeing you smile. Everybody smile? No, just kidding. I love seeing that, but with a webinar, it's really hard because I can't tell if I'm getting to them or not. And with webinars, I'm feeling like, are they really sitting there listening, or are they sitting there going, I hate this guy. I'm wasting my lunchtime. How many people have a mentor? Wow. How many people in the workshop yesterday have got a mentor now? Nobody? Okay, you only have one day. I'll give you another day. If you don't have a mentor, I had 267 people take the survey. 243 said they didn't have a mentor. If you get nothing out of my presentation today, you need a mentor. Okay? I've got various people that have mentored me. I got laid off my first job after 23 years, and that was just a year and a half ago. I'm not that old. But the person I went to mentor is sitting in this audience right here. And she gave me advice on what I should do and looked at my options and gave me those things. You need to have a mentor, somebody you can go to give you advice for different things. And it can be anything. It doesn't have to be just testing. Find a mentor. And you can have multiple ones. You can talk to this person about this topic and this person about that topic. Have multiple mentors. There's no limit. There's no rule here for how you do it. And then how do you measure it? I asked people that did have a mentor, just a few that answered, and they said they build roadmaps, they track the results. Some people have coaches that give them exercises and make them test them. I love that person, whoever that is, because I do that to people. So you don't want me as a mentor, right? Because you're going to ask me a question, I'm going to go, what do you think? You know? Some folks said that blogs and articles are their coach and the communities where they obtain mentoring, and that's okay. I do think it's good to get a physical person that you talk to, and you don't have to talk to them weekly, you don't have to talk to them monthly, or even, you pick the times. But have somebody that you have faith in. It'll do two things. One, it'll build confidence in them that you trust them to do that, and two, it'll help you learn more because they're going to go even further than they would have if they just came to you first. Ask for their help. Tell them you want them to be your. All they can do is say no, or yes. I guess they could do both. I saw this and I put it in here and I thought, well, I'll take it out. But then I thought it's too good to take out. And this slide says, your love makes me strong, your hate makes me unstoppable. Of all the things we've talked today, you're going to go back tomorrow, and I bet you're going to say, wow, this was such a great conference, and I went to all these great sessions, and I heard the best keynote speaker I've ever heard. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. I know that's not true. But you're going to go back and you're going to say, I'm fired up. And then the first thing you're going to do is either your boss is going to just knock the wind out of your sails, or a developer or somebody in another group is going to say, let's get back to work, Have fun at your little party there, and now let's get back to work, right? It's going to happen. Don't let that happen. And hate's a harsh word, but I couldn't change. I didn't make this slide. That was already in the picture. Let your dislike or your disapproval of me makes me unstoppable. Let that drive you. If you've got an organization that says we don't see the value of testing, don't let that stop you. Keep showing the value. Find creative ways to show them why that if you weren't there, they would really miss you. If you've got people that are struggling and debating with you day after day, find ways to get creative and tell them that what we're doing has a lot of value in the organization. Keep the momentum. And when I see you again, I want you to be just as fired up as you are right now. There's a saying out there that says people know you for what you've done, not for what you plan to do. Right? You ever heard that phrase before? I can talk about me personally. I've been talking about writing a book for 15 years. And every year I get a little bit closer. I think I'm actually going to do it this year. But I talk about it. Talking about it's not going to do it. You take back some of the ideas that we've talked about here, put them into action. Get yourself a mentor. You'll be surprised what they can do for you. Look at how you work with other people in the organization. Look at what things you can do every night, every weekend. And I'm not saying just always be doing testing, but enjoy what you're doing there. And then completely contrasting with, you remember for what you've done, know what you plan. I'm asking you, I saw a thing on TEDx, again, just like my mother's situation, where things happen right before she presents something. This came to me in an email and said, look at this. How will you evaluate your life at the end of your life? And it got me thinking, if you could look ahead 20 years, 30 years, or ever how many years you want to be still doing this job, and you're at retirement and you're leaving, what do you want to say you've done? What do you want to say that you've accomplished in the organization? Or not even in the organization, but just in your career, what kind of things do you want to accomplish? And I'll bet you don't have to wait all the way until then. This guy in the TEDx said, lots of times it takes us 20 years for us to realize whether or not we did a good job raising our kids, because you can't tell the first couple of years, maybe even the first 10 or 15 years you can't tell. But after so many years, you start saying, hey, you know what? It turned out to be a pretty good kid. And our work was good, and we kind of maybe take credit for some of that. So I challenge you, is what is something or things that, think about what things you want to achieve over the next X years that you want to continue your career. And what things can you do today to get you there? And most importantly, if you want to see growth in your career, help somebody else. I've learned the most about testing since I started speaking at conferences in 2011 until now. And every time I went, I felt like I was going to show somebody something new, and I learned something from them. And people in the conference would just say, well, what about this situation? What about that situation? If I go back 10, 11 years ago when I started testing and moved out of development, and I look at what I did in testing and how I did testing and what I believed about testing back then, I laugh every time I think about that, because I'm not that person anymore. I've changed, and I've grown in my career, and I've been able to meet some great people like you folks. I would say to you, before you leave today, make sure you don't just spend time sitting in every session. Talk to the people that are here. These are people that you need to know and get to know. There's people in my workshop that are going to ask you a question. I'm not going to tell you. You'll have to figure out what it is. Better remember to do it. And the last thing I'll tell you is you have the potential to change the world. Do you believe it? Yes? Well, I believe it too, and I think that what you need to think is you don't have to be a Bill Gates or a Sheryl Sandberg or a Steve Jobs or a Mark Zuckerberg or any of these folks to make a difference. You can make a difference right where you are in your organization every day, and look for ways to be creative and do it. Even ask yourself, what can I do tomorrow that can make a difference in my organization, even beyond my organization? Sign up to be a speaker. Take that chance. If you're not scared, be a speaker. Tell somebody your story. You know what? Let me give you a secret. You're probably gonna do a bad job at it, just like I'm doing right now. And you're probably going to do a bad job multiple times, and you're going to get ratings from people saying, why do you even speak? I've got those. If you go back to high school, I was the guy that was almost voted the most likely to be the shyest guy in school. And that's hard to believe from some of my schoolmates that said, you're standing in front of 400 people now and speaking? I'm like, yeah, that's me. It can happen, but you just need to be passionate about telling your story. And I've enjoyed telling you my story and what things I've learned. And I hope that you have too. And I want to thank you for being here today, and thanks again for having me. Thank you so much.
All right. Off to networking is your first track talk. Thanks, guys. This isn't your computer?
Yeah.
Good job.
I couldn't tell where my timing was. It was like